Welcome to Organized Zen Now. My name is Janie Downey. Thank you so much for joining me here today. So, Organized Zen is all about getting to your best work, the work that's right in your heart, and making time for that because it's hard to prioritize the work that's most important to us. A lot of times we just are at others' disposal, or we're answering emails, we're answering calls, we're doing what we've always done out of habit. And are you getting to the work that really means something to you? And the Zen part is about doing that in a way that makes you feel really good about what you've done and how you've done it. And you've done it in your own style and at your own pace. And the whole piece of Organized Zen is to bring you more joy in life and to bring you more energy, which we then spread to others. So it's a fun message, and it's a great way to spend your time. So I've been doing a series of talks on community, and what I wanted to share today were last few thoughts on the importance of building community. So how is community important to getting your work done? Gosh, doesn't that just seem like a distraction? So I would say that if you have community behind you, you have a backing so that you're more willing to take chances. You're in a safe place when you're with community, and in a place that you can learn about yourself, maybe from the way that others see you. So my thoughts on community today, I wanted to start this with a great quote. This is from Anna Goldsworthy, and it's a simple sentence, which is, "No one is a complete sentence." So I think that's fun. We don't exist here alone, right? So community, I think, struck us all as particularly important during the pandemic. It's something that maybe is something that you took for granted, and then the pandemic took that away from most of us. And whether you were lucky enough to be in a pod with friends or with family, or if you were completely isolated, everyone felt this loss of community because we had no choice then but to just stay on our own. And we are tribal at our core. So being around other people is vitally important to us. And while the pandemic gave us time to realize that community can be stressful and can be a big time part of our life, it also made us realize that this was vitally important, and that we lost people from our community. We didn't get to spend time with people for our community. So we're having a break right now in pandemics. And so now's a great time to think about community and to jump in on this in two ways. Whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, I think we all got hit equally hard. So now's a great time to take some chances and build community again. So one way to do that is to connect with people that you're already connected with, and the other is to form new community. So on the connect part, you know who you are connected with, and my question to you is, how much time do you get to spend with them? Because it's one thing to think you're part of a community, but being part of a community actually takes some time. So if there's a group of people that you really enjoy being with, now's a great time to reach out and either go out with somebody one-on-one, go for a walk one-on-one or with a group, go out to an event. Or I love this, is to invite people over to your house. Our houses are open again, and it feels a little risky to invite people over. I like building community in weird ways, which is to say, I'm going to invite a mix of people over. So I'm just a sucker for a great conversation. And I feel like conversation is a great way to build community. So a cool way to connect with people that you already know is maybe two friends that you hang out with a lot and two friends that you don't hang out with a lot. When you're trying to build a conversation, you don't want to invite everyone over because you're not going to have a great conversation. You're not going to build community. You need a group of probably 6 or less to have people sit down and feel comfortable and be part of a conversation. And then as a host, I feel it's your responsibility to start that conversation. So when people come, you're greeting them, you're making them feel welcome. You make sure that they're introduced to everyone else. And then when everybody is seated or is gathered in the kitchen, to bring up something that binds us to get this group together. And I was out for lunch the other day with a group of singers. We had numbers on the table of what our orders were, and so the wait staff could help find us. And one of the numbers that was on the table was 19, and I said, 19, where was everybody when they were 19? And there were 7 or 8 of us at the table, and we just went around, and each story was funny, and then people could connect to say, oh, well, when you were in that state, I was in this state, or I also used to work in this business, or I also didn't go right to college, I went here. So one question can help form a lot of neat connections connections between people to help build a community. All right, there's just a thought with that. And I will say about 10 years ago, my husband at the time and I decided that I kept meeting people in the theater, and we kept having these conversations to say, oh, it's so fun hanging out with you, but we can't really talk because we're trying to work on a show. So I'd think, oh, I want to go out with you sometime, or we should have coffee time sometime. But then you'd be working on the next show and you wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. So we brainstormed out and we said, who would be really interesting to have over to dinner? And we actually came up with a big list. And then we put them into an old creamer that my grandmother had left. It was an antique creamer. And so we called them the creamer dinners. This could be a hat dinner for you. But the thought was to get this organized on an ongoing basis. So it wasn't just sort of a one-off. Here's some people I wanted to have dinner with, and then I did it once. It was to have one dinner a month, and to pull people out of the creamer, in this case, could be a hat in your case, to just say, oh, it's these two, and then the two of us. And the goal, again, kind of mix it up and to have people over that we're going to have different conversations than we had with them before. And that included family, which is interesting. If you're used to gathering with your family in big groups, it's cool to try to meet with them in smaller groups, and you'd be amazed at maybe the different conversations. So that's just some thoughts about connecting with the communities that you're already part of. Vitally important and should be really fun. Okay. The other is to form new communities. And this feels way riskier. If you think it feels risky to invite friends and family over that you already know really well, imagine yourself connecting with a brand new community. And the reason I offer this to you is to go back to, again, some of the stuff I've talked about of like a love to-do list, sort of secret stuff that you got in your heart that maybe you haven't done something with. So connecting with a group that you don't already know isn't as hard as you think it would be. First off, you need to spend a little time and imagine who that might be. So maybe you've always wanted to sing. Maybe you've always wanted to play guitar in a group. So in a singing case, can you find a group of singers that are around you? Guitar in a case, is there someplace that does an open mic night? Maybe you are a secret comedian and it would be fun to go to an open mic night and push yourself and find other people who are just as goofy as you are that also want to be a comedian. But there are groups all around you that are looking for new people to garden or to walk or to play with, go running with. So one of the ways I connected it was odd, and I couldn't believe it actually worked, though, was I was writing, and I was writing for the theater, and I wanted to connect with more people that wrote for the theater. And where on earth do you find those people, right? Writers tend to be at their houses, and they're writing. But then I was at a show, and they had a talk back after the show. And one of the panelists was actually the writer for the show. It wasn't just the director, the choreographer, but the writer. So I waited until after the talk was done, and I went up and introduced myself to Dana Rowe, who wrote Witches of Eastwick, the musical. And I said, I'm working on musical theater writing. Can I ask you a couple of questions? And he was like, sure. So we ended up having this great conversation for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And then he gave me his email address and said, you know what, if you have more questions, just get in touch. And that was maybe 8 years ago, and we've been in touch ever since. And I've been to see his shows. I've been down to work with him in New York City, and he's a great guy. We're friends on Facebook. I know his husband well now. Anyway, I took a chance. I met somebody who's just like totally an aspiration level for me. Super great guy, and cool community out of that. And then another one that was just as miraculous was John Cariani, who is a writer and an actor, and he's out of Maine. So I was living in Maine, and Mainers kind of stick together. You know, it's cold up there, so we have to stay together. But John was teaching a class up in Maine, and I drove 4 hours to go hear him speak. And he couldn't believe that I drove from Portland way up to where he was from, up in Presque Isle, to hear him speak. And so we got to talking about it and what a geek I am about theater. And he said the same thing. He's like, you know what? If you have questions about your writing or you want to connect later, here's my email address. So the next show that he was in on Broadway, I sent him a note and said, I don't have questions on writing, but I'm coming to your show. And he said, great. I'll give you a backstage tour. So I got to see the backstage of the band's visit, and it was the Tony Award winner for the year, and got to meet the other cast members, and just to spend a little more time with John. And it's inspiring. So it's inspiring to me as a writer. It's part of a joyous moment in my life and more moments in my life. And then it's just it's being part of a community of writers, and that I really wasn't part of, but I got to be part of. And I've seen him in other shows. He's been back up to Maine. I directed a show that he wrote. So anyway, one thing does lead to another. So this week, for an activity, I would suggest that you take some time. You get out a pad of paper, and you get a pen that you really like, or a pencil. Today, I have a pencil with me, and do two things. So the first is to think about the creamer dinners, and just brainstorm. Is there a list? Do you have a list of people? Maybe it's just a handful of people, but who would you really, really like to have to come to dinner? And jot those down, and then just think about what you want to do with that. Maybe a bigger group. Maybe 6 is too many for you. Whatever works for you, but to think who would be really cool to have over to dinner. And then the second part, before they get here, is to think about conversation starters. What can you do? Not terribly personal. You just want to get a conversation going. And a lot of times that's where someone's from, what their first job was. Since you're serving dinner, you could talk about a traditional dinner in someone's family. That might have been McDonald's. Could be my house. It was Stouffer's. It was frozen when I was growing up because my mom did not like to cook. But what was traditional in their family, and how did they do a traditional dinner? And the other thing is, there's a whole concept around hygge that I'll talk about at some point, but which is comfortably cozy. And having a comfortably cozy dinner means you're not doing all the work. It means you're sharing it. People are bringing food. You could say, everybody, can you please bring your favorite food? You might end up with all appetizers or all desserts, but bring a favorite food and bring a story that goes with it. And in a hygge dinner, it's comfortably cozy, right? Everybody's helping out. Everybody might be in the kitchen at the same time. Everybody's seated at the same time. You don't have quite as much responsibility except to make that request to say, we'd like to come to dinner and we're going to share food. And that makes it kind of fun. And then the second part out of that is the connecting with a new group. And this one takes a little bit more thinking, but take some time and think about, is there a tribe that you would really like to be part of? And brainstorm that. And this can be a crazy list. It doesn't have to be like, don't edit yourself like, oh, well, I would, except I don't have this. Or, well, I'd like to be, exhibiting my art, but I don't have this. Don't edit. Just brainstorm. What group would you just love to hang out with? Is it a rock and roll band? Is it a country singer? Is it mathematical geniuses? And then this is one of those magic lists. You just need to be aware that you want to be part of that tribe, and you will start to notice where you see them show up, and you will notice if there's an opportunity for you to do that. I have searched, and you might find searching. Maybe there's a group that blogs or does videos of something that you like, but try searching for it, but also just be open, because a lot of times when you ask the universe a question, you will get an answer. You may be surprised at what the answer is, but you got to think it first. Spend the time. Think it through. All right, so let's review. You are going to recognize the importance of community in your life. You've missed it. I know you have. You're going to think about ways to connect with that community and be inventive and connect in a way that works really well for you. And then you can think about whether you can be part of a different community, a new community, maybe a dream community, and see how that works for you. Okay, I hope that helps. Thanks for coming. If this is helpful to you, please like, please share, and please subscribe, because then other people on YouTube can find me as well. Appreciate you being here. Bye-bye.